Whew, I'll be brutally honest. Episode 19 of Summertime Rendering is really getting to that territory where the time stuff really starts to muddle the actual show. It's been pretty solid so far. They haven't tried to push the boundaries too far. Everything sort of makes sense, the idea of a reset. Having something kind of pull from one reset to the other kind of explains things, but I really have to be honest that at this point with these pseudo loops and stuff, we're really starting to get in the realm where nothing's going to be really cohesive anymore, and it's sad because I hope that eventually things get explained, and I'm waiting for that, honestly. I'm not going to judge the whole show just because of my current frustrations, because yes, over time they can explain this stuff, but right now with things like, why didn't she ever use Shadow Shinpei before? Why are we suddenly talking about pseudo loops and Ushio pseudo loops and stuff like that when trying to just push something into the picture? We'll have to wait to see. Like I said, I'm not throwing the show out. I'm not going to suddenly say it's no longer Anime of the Year contender. It's just I am starting to see those cracks sort of form in the storyline telling, and we're getting into the realm of, if they don't explain it, like I said, the just because writing. And anyways, that aside, yes, opening up the episode, we did pretty much get a confirmation that it seems like, yes, Ushio is no longer with Shinpei. It seems like Haine is super thrilled about this. It's a joyous occasion. But at the same time, after she makes a copy of Akari, which it seems like that's going to be her replacement for Shiori because she went to a crow and then now she is Akari. Even though she goes to attack Shinpei, and it seems like everything is over. Like Shinpei is at the edge, the event horizon. He's going to fall off the cliff if he dies one more time. She stops. Haine stops because she finds she's still cautious. She's at her. Let's make no mistake. Both of them are at the edge of the cliff. Shinpei dies one more time. He falls off. If Haine messes up right now, she's gone because she's expended all of her resources except for maybe Shide. Shide is the only thing she really has left. So she has to be careful here. And so the moment that she goes to attack Shinpei, she stops them because he reaches in his pocket. And yes, what we find out later on is what was in his pocket. Ushio's shell, her shell necklace. So that's a sign right there that Ushio's not gone. Like that right there, Haine has revealed to Shinpei basically, Ushio's not gone. There's still a chance that she comes back. There is still data there. Now, the question mark, and I don't remember, it's going to have to be me going way back to remember exactly how that shell got in his pocket. I believe that was the original Ushio's shell, but there's a possibility that could be the Shadow Ushio. Or, again, like I said, that using this original data, because originally when Ushio's snapshot was taken, she was wearing that necklace. So that technically is a part of the original form of Ushio. That's a part of the original data. So technically, if he could possibly get her to maybe find somebody to take a snapshot of that. Again, that goes back to my theory and the idea that somebody like Mio, the Shadow Mio, could possibly form into Ushio. And that might be what they'll end up doing. If it will pull all the data, that's the big question mark. And I don't think it necessarily should, but again, they might explain it somehow. Yeah, following this, Shinpei decides to contact everybody in order to let them know that Ushio is gone and kind of get everybody together. But unfortunately, his signal gets cut off because, yes, like I mentioned earlier, Haine is now employing the Shadow Shinpei. The Shadow Shinpei that we've seen a long time ago, technically back in the festival, I think was the first time that we've seen him. But, of course, we did have some signs that it was before then. But yeah, Shadow Shinpei cuts it off and starts calling everybody, calls everybody separately and says, you go over here and you go over here, let's meet up. We need to make a battle plan, again, imitating Shinpei. Which is technically all so that they can split them up and have these two take down each group. Which kind of sort of pushes it to the idea that there only being two Shide Kirakiris. But yeah, one of the phone calls was to regular Mio, which the Shadow Shinpei tells her, look, Shadow Mio could be reconnected to Haine because Ushio's dead. Take her down. And so they decide to nail her down and go to this garden, Alan's garden, where they'll meet Shide. That's pretty much all we get from that perspective. I did like the fact that the reveal of this was that Shinpei went home, went to Alan's place, left all the kids there, went up to his room where he found Shadow Mio laying there. And so he goes to crowbar these nails up and she's like, you could be more gentle about that. And I thought I got a huge kick out of it because it's technically him touching her leg and pulling this out, but it was kind of funny. But it was interesting, though. This scene was actually pretty cool because it has Shinpei getting very panicky. Obviously, he's got his back to the wall at this point. Back to the cliff, technically. But he's got his back to the wall. They're employing his own voice against him. They have Shinpei's mind now. And that's what Shadow Mio is really trying to push upon Shinpei. You need to calm down. Basically, they're going to use your mind to trick you because they know what's going to throw you off. And you gotta really chill out. And Shinpei keeps kind of, I have to do something. He keeps getting irrational. And Shadow Mio is like really trying to tell him, look, you gotta calm down and really think about this. Yeah, of course, in between all this, we have Katakiri is talking to Shadow Shinpei, or Haine, technically, and it does technically right here confirm the idea that this is Haine that took the image, because this is Haine controlling it, which would technically be Shiori, because originally, when she got his image, she was in the form of Shiori, took his image, and she hasn't really used it in the show that we've seen, except for, again, the festival. That was the point in which she showed up, Shadow Mio was fighting him, and Haine, as Shadow Shinpei, comes up and says, don't kill him, he'll reset things, and then he went up into the festival. But again, this is where it kind of gets a little bit muddy in the idea that, yes, Katakiri's like, when did you get that? And Haine's like, this isn't from Ushio's memories. This is a hole in their pseudo loops. Which this got me kind of thinking, this is where I'm trying to make sense of it by myself, is this thought process that every time that they have looped ever since he started traveling with Ushio, the Shadow Ushio, that was like a veering pseudo loop. Like, here is the regular timeline, which goes up to the point where the festival happened, all the sacrifices happened. That was the point in which he got involved, grabbed Ushio, and they went back into the past, and then she had to follow them. And that would be the point which they went to the pseudo loop, which is this new area right here. This is what we've been on for pretty much a majority of the show, is this pseudo looping over here, which was them trying to change the timeline to something else. Now that Ushio is gone, he's no longer looping with her, he's returned back to the original timeline. And that's the timeline which, essentially, she got that data from Shinpei. So now she's able to employ it again. So basically, this is me trying to explain it before, hopefully, they explain it themselves. My thought process, them mentioning the pseudo loop, which is this other timeline that this whole show has been mostly with Shinpei and Ushio together. And now that Ushio's gone, they are now back at this normal timeline. They now have this data about Shinpei, and they can now employ that upon him. Now, the question mark still remains in my head is the original question I had way back here, like long time ago. That moment that Shadow Mio had killed Shinpei outside of Alan's house. At that point, even then, when Shadow Tetsu asked Shadow Mio, why don't you take his picture? Why don't you take an image of him? Shadow Mio said, we can't, and then it cut off. Even then, in my impressions, I believe that she said, his picture has already been taken. His data has already been taken. And even still back then, my mindset at that point was, how far back does this go? Was this at the funeral? Was it from a long time before then? Because technically in one of the time loops, at the funeral, they confirmed that Alan's image was taken, not Shinpei's. So it leads me to believe that it was before then. And I'm kind of wondering if even right now, the storytelling is trying to throw us off by claiming that Shinpei got his image taken at the funeral, he got his image taken at Shiori's house, but never before then. They're trying to misdirect the viewer. But we'll see. I still kind of believe that this is going to go. At some point, we're going to see this big Deus Ex Machina thing where it's all started way back before he even came to the island. At some point, we're going to go so far back, it's all going to be altered back here. There's a chance that we'll even have this be one of those stories where it ends where it begins, but we'll see. Yes, the final scene that we do get is with Hizuru and team, and they are all going to where they were called to go to, which, of course, they already know at this point. It's probably a trap. And yes, Hizuru goes down there alone, tells Nezu to stay behind and snipe if he can, and she goes down there and, of course, immediately knows that Shinpei is the Shadow Shinpei, and then Katakiri shows up to try to take her down, and he fails, and they have this nice little fight going on between them. A lot of stuff was both revealed but also confirmed at this point, which I did appreciate. This is getting me overthinking things and hoping that they'll eventually explain it, and they actually do. And that is that the reason that Ryunosuke is inside of Hizuru, and not only that, but has the power to see forward in time, I was theorizing was that because Ryunosuke has some sort of connection to Haine, that he was able to see what the shadows were going to do, because they're all hive mind. But in actuality, what happened is that she said that When I killed Ryunosuke, my human self was so traumatized that I essentially killed my best friend's brother that I had to eject that emotion out of me. I had to get it out of my system. And that, of course, meant that part of herself ejected, which was the eye. But additionally, that the image of Ryunosuke was projected out of herself. And this printout of his data, she said that she got the coordinates wrong. Not in space, but in time, that she projected it out 2 seconds before, 2 seconds ahead of time, which, yes, is kind of like one of those things of, okay, time, sure, if she can, apparently she can print out things in time, but still, it explains the idea that this printout was 2 seconds later. So when that went into Hizuru, she now technically has a Ryunosuke that is 2 seconds ahead of time. So again, kind of cool to technically get an explanation. Again, it takes a little bit of suspension of disbelief, but it makes sense. Additionally, here we get to see, yes, Haine wants to live up to what she claimed that she was going to do a long time ago. I am going to kill you if you ever come back here. But additionally, we get to see that Katakiri really doesn't like Hizuru, like really doesn't like him. Because from Katakiri's perspective, ever since you got into Haine's life, ever since you got involved with her, that was placing conflict within her. Enough conflict that would cause her illness to progress faster, to the point where she would only have a month to live. Katakiri tells her, you are the fault for Haine being forced to return. It's your fault for your brother's death. Everything is your fault. It was kind of, yeah, I guess so. I didn't really technically grasp the idea of why Haine would have... I don't think it necessarily has explained what Haine's illness is, what is inflicting her. Maybe that's something they'll get into eventually, but at least it's kind of putting into perspective that because of Haine's existence being alongside Hizuru, it was causing her to be conflicted with how she should exist. And I think that might play into the whole idea that she must consume in order to live. And with her around Hizuru, she wasn't wanting to consume people. It wasn't really technically until she got a little bit of Hizuru's blood that she realized that she needed to have that. She was always hungry because of that. But yes, Katakiri reveals his power, which is what he calls mud, which is kind of a glob of different shadows that are no longer human, all into one little ball that he can then kind of manipulate to be pretty much his shield. And they start going at it. Really cool fight scene, honestly, really awesome. Love the action, love the slow motion shots, really kind of showing how she... well, Ryunosuke sledged his face and then kind of just swarms around him, be it all the objects in the air still up in the air. It looked really cool. But it was really all about Ryunosuke having to force himself to push his sister's body faster and faster because he knew that he had to get ahead of that time. That they know that he can technically control time. Haine can technically see into it and let him know. So they had to go faster and faster, but he doesn't want to push the body too much to break it. So it was really cool when you finally have that moment where Ryunosuke is scared. Like, I can't keep pushing my sister's body. Eventually, I'm going to break my sister. I have to get out of here. That's when Hizuru takes over. Nope, hold on. We're not going nowhere. This is it. Like, this is it. This is the battle. If we run now, we're dead anyways. We are going to fight here. Don't hold back anymore. And this is really cool because this is the first time they've ever been able to speak to each other. It's not really explained why this is the case, but yes, technically they are now side by side. She's able to speak directly to him. He can hear her. And he's really excited about it. Finally get to talk to my sister. He was so super excited. I felt a little emotional like there. It was a little bit comical that I wasn't able to kind of let it set in, but it's technically really heartfelt to think of. Like, it's been 14 years since he basically passed away. And yes, he's always been inside of her, but they were never able to speak to each other except for recording. But yeah, she tells him, do it. Push my body to the limits. Take this guy down. We cannot fail here. But yeah, that was basically it. I don't know what Nezu's doing like this whole time, and Nezu's just kind of chilling up on the mountainside. She says that he's trying to get a shot, but still, it's like, come on, dude. But yeah, my issues aside with the whole pseudo loops and stuff like that, I'm sure eventually it's going to make sense. If not, I'll probably read through the manga and see if it can make more sense if I read through the manga rather than watch the show. Maybe I just watch through the whole show again. But either way, still love the episode. Really fantastic. Great action scene. As always, some amazing shots of Hizuru. I always love Ryunosuke going nuts. It's always good looking. A lot of really fantastic shots of Hizuru. I'm going to have to decide which one I want to put in my thumbnail. And yeah, Shadow Shinpei's back, which goes back to one of my first impressions video. That was his worst enemy. Him getting his picture taken himself is his worst enemy. And they're at least now showing that they still have that in their cards, which again is detrimental to Shinpei. He's going to have to figure out some way to outdo himself, and it's a very difficult task. And yes, we'll have to wait and find out how they're going to pull Ushio out of the shell. We'll see. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, comment, let me know what you thought of the episodes. Please, I don't know why I have to keep explaining this. Don't put spoilers in the comments. I've seen some last episode. Nobody wants to hear it. Please be respectful of other people. Don't put spoilers in the comments. Let us theorize. Let us be frustrated. If we still don't get it by the end of the show, then we can talk about it. But either way, as always, if you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. Anything you can give is greatly appreciated, and y'all take care.